Bruins Beat, brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky, joined by Pete Blackburn. Pete, what is up?
Hi, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. I assume you're pumped to start. You correct me if I'm wrong. You have like a 7 TV setup for hockey games, right?
I don't anymore. I used to. I moved. Now I have a 1 TV setup, but I did buy a projector, and now I'm just projecting a second screen onto the wall next to my TV, which is pretty nice. It gets the job done.
Did you get like one of those projectors off TikTok that I always see?
No, I got it off Amazon. So
okay.
I'm very happy.
You got a real one.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
got a real one. I got I got it for outdoor purposes because I got like a nice little fire pit and stuff, and I've been watching college football games outside. But I did miss the second screen, so I just tried it in my office. Just put it up on the wall, and it works perfectly for that too. So very, very happy.
You're like Herb Brooks in Miracle with the projector just, running on the wall, like doing
That's
film.
right.
It's funny. One of my roommates just moved out and we had a 2 TV setup and I loved it. And I didn't realize how much I loved it until he took the second TV away. And now we're sort of scrambling. We don't what do we put on the 1 TV? We don't have a second one. And I loved like for college hockey nights or NHL nights when the Bruins weren't playing, having 2 games up and just watching both. It's a luxury, that's for sure.
Yeah, like once you I don't think I could ever go back to a single TV or single screen experience unless like obviously there's one game on that night. But like that's why I don't do like press box stuff, or that's why I don't go to Bruins games most nights, is because if I do that, I'm missing the rest of the night and or the rest of the night slate, and I just don't want to do that. I want to keep eyes on a bunch of different games, and that's something that I can't do with 1 TV or by going to a game.
Yeah, I agree. It is tough. I remember when I was at NCAA and I had to cover college, I never really went to college games because it's like, well, I want to watch every game. I want to like keep an eye on everything. You can't do that if you just go to 1. But yeah, great start to the season. Exciting times for sure. Bruins are 1-1, a 6-4 win and a 6-4 loss. Wild swing of emotions. Exciting team in terms of just high scoring stuff to start the year. How are you feeling so far?
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm waiting for the season to start in a way, because that first game was as a burn the tape game as you could get, and I don't think you want one of those in game 1 as you're trying to figure out some things about your team. But it became pretty clear early on in that game that they were not ready to play, and they were going up against a team in Florida that was absolutely ready to play, and it was kind of a continuation of a lot of the things that you saw in the playoffs last year, and you're just like, oh, this. All right, I'm done with this game about 15 minutes into it. So, and then, you head into the next game and you got Montreal, and they get their backup goaltender. They're not really like a great team. It certainly wasn't a perfect win, but you started to see more of what you were hoping to see with the Bruins come together. And I feel like they're going to meet somewhere in the middle at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. You only got 2 game sample. Some real strong positives, some real strong negatives as well through 2 games.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway. And like that game last night to Montreal sort of felt like a preseason game, at least for Swayman. And maybe that's just because Swayman was in net, hadn't been in net for a while. Some of his reads are off. I get that. Still made some good saves defensively in front of him. Like that's where I think to me, that's the biggest negative so far.
Yeah.
Is losing net front battles, not picking up your guys. Like that Cole Caulfield goal, that's Morgan Geeky's guy. Like you've got to see him drop down there. And
in the Florida game, Jim Montgomery said it. There was like 3 or 4 goals that were tap-ins on the doorstep. There was just bad coverage around the net. With Florida too, like I know the big story for a lot of people was Jonas Korpisalo. His rebound control was real bad early on, and Korpisalo. I wanted to see a more encouraging initial showing from him in a game that mattered, based off of, he was one of statistically the worst goaltenders in the league last year. He's a main piece in the return for Linus Ullmark. He's signed through 2028 at $3 million. Like, you're making a sizable commitment to this guy, and you want to see initial returns that are pretty good. And I don't think that they got that, but he wasn't the exclusive problem for the Bruins. Their net front coverage was horrible in that first game. Pretty bad at points in the second game too. I would agree with you that that's been the most glaring issue for that team through 2 games.
Yeah, to me, Korpisalo obviously wasn't great. I didn't think he was the full problem against Florida. To me, it goes back to that breakout. The fact that this is, again, I know it's one game, it's the first game of the year, but 3 years of them just completely stifling you coming out of your own zone. And I think a lot of people are like, you need more scoring, you need better forwards. And yeah, there's some truth to that. And you have struggled to score at times against Florida. But if you can't get the pucks to your forwards cleanly, if your forwards can't get to the neutral zone cleanly, you have no chance at offense, no matter who it is. And I feel like in that regard, there's no adjustments. They're getting out coached. And stuff like that. But again, when I see, Brandon Carlo kind of lose a net front battle to Brendan Gallagher against the Canadians, it's like, all right, well, that's not coaching. That's discipline. That's using your body. That's smarts. Like, what is that? And now again, as you said, it's 2 games. Like, I've seen some overreactions on Twitter about the defense being horrendous. They're paying a lot for them, obviously, went out and signed Zadorov. Zadorov did get 2 assists against Montreal, which I think should be noted. And we'll get to that in a bit. But I also think it takes time. I do. And, you see Montgomery scratching low rye against Montreal. Wotherspoon goes in. I would like to see a little bit of a longer leash on low rye. I know that there are going to be ups. I feel like people have to realize with low rye, there's going to be some great plays, and there are going to be some ones where you're left scratching your head. And I would like to see them put maybe a little bit of a longer leash on that kid.
Sure, but I also do think that in game 1 he was horrendous. Like if he has,
he was their worst player. He was actually their worst player, no doubt.
And if he has a below average game, maybe he gets a longer leash. But he was horrendous in game 1, and I think that maybe you send a message in game 2, or just try to get some early work for Parker Wotherspoon. I don't have a problem with the scratch. It's it would be a problem if it continues and you don't give him a shot beyond this. I do think that Lorai's gonna slide back in. It's gonna be fine. I also think that you mentioned Zadorov. Zadorov's also one of those guys that you can't expect him to be great every night. And I know that they paid him a good amount in free agency, and he was a big addition that everybody's excited about. The book on Zadorov is that he's going to be kind of an adventure at times too. And I think we've already seen that a bit through 2 games. You're going to get some good. He's going to bring an element.
Chaos. He's an adventure.
Yeah, he was great. I love the guy's personality. He's unbelievable. I like the element that he brings to this team in terms of toughness and edge. I think they absolutely need it, especially on the back end. They need that size. But he's not going to be a perfect shutdown defenseman. He's going to be a guy that is a little bit of a roller coaster at times, and we've seen some of that already. We've seen some ups, seen some downs. It's one of those things that I feel like it's going to get stronger as it goes on. You develop relationships, you kind of build this chemistry and find where these guys work with each other and let them settle in a little bit more. But it has been all over the place through 2 games.
Yeah, it has. And I think there are going to be times where a guy like Zadorov gets burned. I think you're going to see that, quite a bit. But I also his offensive upside intrigues me. His puck handling ability is good. His willingness to skate the puck, poise at the blue line, things like that with a big man, I think is so rare. And I do think that there is that offensive element. And you saw that a little bit in the playoffs with Vancouver, where it's and I wasn't super familiar with Zadorov's game prior to him signing. And obviously, you go back and watch some stuff, but I do find him interesting. And I think the defense as a whole, we mentioned Lowry, Zadorov, Carlo, those guys, it does take time for them to settle into their roles. And for a guy like Lowry, it's, he's got a really high offensive upside. And then there's times in the defensive zone where it's dude, that guy's wide open. What are you doing? And I think that takes time. But through 2 games, I find this to be an interesting team. I want to talk more about some of the positives because we've been harping on a lot of the negatives. But first, quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. It's hard not to pick more receiving yards for Justin Jefferson or more passing yards for Josh Allen. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Now, back to the show. So keeping it on defense, one guy I've liked through 2 games, and there was definitely that shorthanded goal against Florida was abhorrent. I mean, that, you got to play better defense on that. It was a nice play also, though, by Sam Reinhart. But Charlie McAvoy getting the offense going. I think that's a really good sign for him. And it's been talked about a lot, obviously, that in this generation of defensemen, he's, top 5, but not quite, is he going to beat out Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes for Norris? His best route to doing that is more offense. 2 goals in 2 games, I think, is as good a start as you can want for him.
Yeah, he's shooting the puck more. He's activating more. Like it's definitely one of those things where you've been waiting for this for a long time, and you see it in pockets. But there are also times where he seems hesitant, isn't quite as aggressive offensively as you want him to be. And you're right. Like if Charlie McAvoy wants to win in Norris, he has to have the numbers on a page because he is playing and sharing, a generation that includes Cale Makar, includes Quinn Hughes, includes Adam Fox, guys like that. Those guys are going to produce, and Charlie McAvoy needs to up his offensive numbers. And through 2 games, it seems like that's become a priority, and the returns are very good. Another guy that I look at that's kind of doing a little bit more of that and needs to do more of it is Hampus Lindholm. Like he needs to start putting pucks towards the net and contributing offensively. Those 2 guys need to be your best 2-way defensemen, like always. And, I think that you can be encouraged by what you've seen through 2 games.
I felt bad for Hampus Lindholm. You have kind of a slow year in terms of points last year. You get a goal in game 2 at the beginning of the game, and it's called right off. It's like, oh man, like got to do that all again. But I agree with you, and I think like Hampus Lindholm has that potential. We saw that 2 years ago. We saw what he's able to do offensively, and I agree with you. And I think with a guy like McAvoy too, and you saw, I think it was on that Elias Lindholm tip goal, McAvoy's streaking down the weak side post. Like McAvoy's going for that far post, trying to get a rebound from the point. And I think that's good. I think you want him taking some chances, getting involved in the offense, joining the rush. I like that. And I think you want that. And I also think for a guy like McAvoy, you're going to get more points out of him because the power play should be better with the addition of Elias Lindholm. It should be better. And so I wonder how much that factors in. I also wonder, is his left side going to stabilize? Is Zadorov going to be the guy that's there all the time? Is Lindholm? My take is I think through the first couple months, I think those pairs rotate because I think it is going to take a little time for Lowry to settle in. And I think they don't know exactly where they want Zadorov. You saw him start with Peak in game in game 1. That Lowry Carlo pairing, as you said, was dreadful in game. I mean, that was as bad. I don't know if you saw the game score. Someone always tweets it. And those 2 were like by far the most negative. So
yeah, what
I think
shock.
It's going to take time on D. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. Like the stabilization and the finding where guys fit and where they thrive, that's going to be important. And I honestly, I do like the left side. I like the combination of guys they have with Zadorov, Lindholm, Lohrei, and Wotherspoon. Like, I think all of those guys are valuable pieces on the left side. It's just about maximizing what you can get from them on a nightly basis based on who they play with, based off of the system. And like, not to go back too far, but like when talking about McAvoy and Lindholm and like what they can do for this team, when Montgomery came in after Cassidy, one of the first things that you saw immediately was like kind of the chains that he took off the guys on the back end and the freedom that he allowed them to jump up into the play and activate a bit more and contribute in the offensive end of the zone. I think they need to take more advantage of that. And through 2 games, we've seen that freedom feel a little bit more exercised at points. I know it's early, but at points you've seen them take advantage of that freedom that he might give them.
Yeah, and I think those guys need it. And I think you have the offensive potential on the back end too. We talked about Zadorov, Lohrei, McAvoy, Lindholm. I mean, those are guys that have, obviously McAvoy's more than that, but 30+ point potential. And I think that, you have to generate some offense from the back end, especially considering your second line right now, Marchand, Coyle, Geeky. I don't know if the offensive upside is too high with that line. I do find it interesting though. I mean, Elias Lindholm, 4 points in 2 games, a goal and 3 assists. Like Pavel Zacha has been super involved. Had a nice assist on Pasternak's goal. Pastrnak has 2 goals. Like that top line is working. And it's through 2 games. Again, like we have to continue to preface this with that, but I do think it's encouraging that you're seeing that line gel, early. And I think they're going to need that throughout the season.
Yeah, I like Lindholm a lot. I feel like, I don't know if you can agree with this or confirm this, but I feel like a lot of people were down on Lindholm after that signing. They were like, oh, you signed Charlie Coyle plus to be your top line center. And I just don't see that as Elias Lindholm's ceiling. I don't think that he's the 40 goal guy that he was a couple of years ago, but he is a very good all around player. And I think that he's very smart. His hockey IQ is there. And like, you can't just like go out and sign an elite 1C on the free agent market every year. And every Bruins fan was saying, like, you need to improve down the middle. You need to improve down the middle. I think you got a really good player in Elias Lindholm, and you're starting to see the early returns on that. I'm very encouraged by what I've seen from him. Like, I think that he could change the complexion of this team and that top line quite a bit throughout the season and beyond.
I agree, and I didn't understand it at the time. I understand some people's gripe with, oh my God, it's too long. But I also think his $7.75 million per in 3 years is not going to look that bad. I also think that that's going to be 2C money in 3 years, 4 years as the cap goes up. And I think that's more of what he'll be. And I agree with you. I think he improves this team a ton. I mean, you give Pastrnak a center that not only did he want to play with, but someone who completely ups his offensive production and gives that line sort of a defensive look too, where he can take D zone draws. He's good on faceoff. So I never.
And he pushed Zacha to the wing. Like, you push Zacha to the wing, and I think that's important too.
Yes, and I remember like the Athletic, like Dom's model, like completely crushed both the Lindholm and Zadorov signings. And I get, the idea that free agency is not the best way to build your roster. I think we can agree on that. But Lindholm fits the identity of this team well. And I think that's why, like, is he going to put up his career high of 82 points? Maybe not. But like, I have him somewhere in the 70s. I think he's somewhere in that like 71, 72 point range, because I think and on the power play too, he brings you so much that you didn't have last year.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I mean, he's going to be playing with David Pastrnak too. Like, Pasternak's going to elevate those guys. So like, the point production, I'm not worried about the point production. I'm not worried about the fit. He is an upgrade, and we're starting to see it already. And like, when your weakest spot is what you've got down the middle, and knowing how important it is to have a strong team down the middle to contend for a Stanley Cup, I didn't really get the complaints.
No, I didn't either. I want to get into one other big positive that I've noticed, at least from the Montreal game, and then I want to get into sort of our bigger picture stuff. But first, quick word from our friends over at GameTime. Fall is beginning, which means football is back. Nothing beats a college football atmosphere, And with both college and NFL games, who doesn't love a good tailgate? Get to the game with GameTime. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. This fall, my friends and I are going to the Patriots-Titans game in Tennessee. And how will we get tickets for the game? GameTime, of course. The super deal has been amazing to us in the past, and there's no doubt it will be great to us again. I just love the curated deals, which make it easier to find the best price on great seats. Some other features I love are the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. GameTime Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So, download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to the show. So I realized as we're talking about all the good stuff, there's one guy we didn't mention. That's Cole Koepke. Cole Koepke.
Sure.
And the fourth line as a whole. We'll give the fourth line with Beecher and Kastelik as a whole. But Cole Koepke, what a game. And I think this is sort of another, again, it's one game against Montreal, like home opener. We saw this with AJ Greer a couple of years ago. But encouraging signs so far. I mean, gets those 2 assists, scores a goal himself, really helped drive that fourth line. Kastelik gets 2 against the Canadians. Beecher was pushing play. I think that fourth line is going to transition a lot, but I think it is encouraging early on that a guy like Cole Koepke, who was really a kind of an AHLer up to this point, produced such big returns in that game.
Yeah, agreed. I think that when you look at this team on paper, probably the weakest point is the bottom 6 and sort of who you've got back there, the uncertainty. And, if you just ask like a lot of Bruins fans or neutral fans, I think a lot of those guys, they'd be like, who the hell is that?
Brooks Koepka? Is that Brooks Koepka?
Yeah, right. Officer Koepke? What? Excuse me? Yeah, like Mark Kastelik, didn't know what to expect from him. Cole Koepke, no idea. Riley Tufte, no idea.
Yeah, I didn't. Those are signings on free agency day that everyone's like, oh, cool, retweet, move on.
Sure, whatever. Filling out the roster. So, I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to say, oh, we're locked in on the bottom 6. But like seeing early returns are very encouraging for the weakest point of your team, at least on paper.
Yeah, and I think that they want that fourth line identity to be a hard forechecking, physical, big line. And Beecher kind of brings that speed. Kastelik is just always looking to start stuff, finishing every hit. And I think if Koepke can sort of bring you a little bit of offense on that line, I think it gives you something. Now, again, there are other elements, there are other guys vying for that line. I mean, when Patra comes back, someone's going to probably move down and bump somebody off that fourth line. So I think you also have to consider that. But I think it's encouraging, and it's a guy who's making the most of his NHL opportunity, which is one of the best things to see.
And I mean, I also think there's an element too, like it's not a bad thing that we don't know what the bottom 6 is going to look like. It's not a bad thing that guys are going to slot in and out, keeps them hungry, and like doesn't allow them to just kind of feel like super comfortable. I don't think you want your guys in your bottom 6, particularly your fourth line, to feel overly comfortable because they have to go out and earn the spot every night.
No, you don't. And I also think it goes back to roster construction where you look at like the Islanders when they signed like Matt Martin and all those guys to like longer term deals. And it's like, you don't want that for your fourth line. You want guys. Yeah. Like you want guys who like that role. It's not really a scoring role. So you need that role to be guys that are amped up for their 11 or 12 minutes a night who, again, we saw with the Bruce Cassidy days of sort of a shutdown line. I think now they're trying to go for a line that just forechecks the hell out of teams and sort of beats them down. And you need to be amped for that. You need to be a little anxious about your spot in the NHL to be on that line. So I agree with you. I think that line changes quite a bit. I don't think that's a problem. I think it kind of continues. Big picture. I don't remember what your predictions were for this year, where you thought they were going to finish. But have through 2 games, have you changed your feelings at all?
No, I mean, not based off of the Bruins, really. Like, again, like, I don't think we've learned a whole lot through 2 games because game 1 was so bad that you almost throw it in the trash. Because there's no way they're going to be that bad. It's just not.
No.
I don't think it's possible. I really hope I'm right.
Can't be. It can't be.
I really hope
be, please.
I'm right on
no,
that.
please.
Can't be that bad. You've just had so many ups and downs in the game against Montreal too. So I'm again, like, I feel like I'm still waiting for the season to start. Bigger picture, I started out thinking like they're probably going to be anywhere from 2nd to 4th in the division. If you finish lower than that, it's kind of a bad year. I think that Tampa took a step backward. I think that Ottawa took a step forward. I think Detroit's going to be like in that mix, but like this is a tough division, and the Bruins are still a playoff team, and I think that that's good enough at this point.
What's interesting is like I think they upgraded in the offseason, at least on paper. And I think they should go into the season with Stanley Cup contention aspirations, expectations. I do.
So,
I think that.
Yeah, so I waver on that because I think that they're a worse regular season team and probably a better playoff team. Like, your biggest strength over the past 2 years has been goaltending and the duo, and that's allowed you to find a ton of regular season success, but you can only play one guy in the playoffs. And so I think you swap out Ullmark and what he brings to you in the regular season, and you go to the guy who was a dog in the playoffs last year, Swayman. I'm obviously very glad they locked him up. And
that was fun, wasn't it?
Oh my God. I wasn't panicking until like the last few days or the last week. And boy, that last week was horrible. But like
that was a fun week.
You got better in the places that you needed to get better. You got better down the middle. You got better on the blue line. You added some edge. You added some toughness. Like, I think they're a tougher team to play. They can start to punch teams in the mouth, or at least punch back when a team like Florida punches them in the mouth. I know they didn't show it in game 1, but they're better positioned to contend in the spring as long as they get there. And I think they're still in a good enough position to get there.
I agree. To me, I think they mate with Elias Lindholm as your number 1 center. Zadorov is a clear upgrade over Grzelcyk on the back end. I think you're going to get more offense from Zadorov. I think you're going to get better defense from Zadorov.
He can hit.
He can hit. Like, I think that
pushed around.
Yeah, like not a dude you want to mess with, or at least you shouldn't want to. To me, I think they upgraded enough to be expected at the top or near the top of the Atlantic. And I understand the argument of they might not be as good of a regular season team. I'm not as sold. Like, again, at some point, and maybe this will hit more in the spring than it will now, but Florida at some point has to lose a little bit of gas. You hope Alexander Barkov is okay. Took a really bad. I haven't seen any updates on that on Friday morning.
He's getting looked at today, and I think they said he's going to get looked at tomorrow too, which is not a good sign.
Yeah, that's not good. So again, like, Florida needs to lose a little bit of gas in terms of, they went to 2 straight Stanley Cup finals. Like, at some point, does that catch up to them? Toronto, I still, I know Joseph Wall is a good young prospect. I still need to be a little convinced in net for them.
He needs to play too.
Well,
that's the thing.
That's the other part of it too.
Yeah.
So again, to me, like, have my expectations changed? I'm with you. They have not. They've not. Again, like, the Bruins won all 4 games in Florida, or against Florida in the regular season last year. It didn't mean shit come the playoffs. Florida could win all 4 this year. It won't mean anything for the playoffs. Now, they could still kick the Bruins' ass in the playoffs. So, like, I guess that also doesn't matter. But to me, I haven't changed how I felt about this team. They do need to get better defensively. That to me is like, that's because, again, you are going to have Swayman having some off nights. You're not going to have the tandem. You need your big guys, Carlos, Zadorov, Peak, anybody in front of the net to cover their guy and win their battles. Because to me, like, that's the thing that has doomed them, at least very, very early in the season.
Yeah, I agree. It's that the play around the net, and then I don't want to keep going back to Korpisalo, but man, it's gonna haunt me for the next 3 years if he stinks. So I want to see more from Korpisalo.
No one's taking that money. No, even though the Bruins aren't even paying full price. No one's taking that
buyout candidate. Like, I don't want to hit the buyout calculator in year 1 for Jonas Korpisalo. So
no, you don't.
like there's still a little bit of hope that like maybe he can find it here, and it wasn't delivered in game one. But I think that's like early on. If we're talking about things we're looking forward to and want to keep an eye on for the rest of the season, after 2 games, it's the play around the net, the blue line play, and it's what you're going to get from Korpisalo.
I agree. And I also think Korpisalo, that's not really his spot. Season opening game against Florida, a game that, your biggest rival right now. That is not the game you put him in for. The game you put him in for ideally would be like Saturday against the Kings at a 1 p.m. start, or, down the road, kind of filling in here and there. Like, I
mean, it would have been last night against Montreal, like,
or that,
one of the like lesser teams in the conference. Let him cut his teeth against that team, not against Florida.
I agree. I do wonder how they use Swayman over the next couple weeks. Do you just ride him completely and let him get up to speed? Because he does need NHL reps. They're practicing as we speak right now, but at game reps too. Like, I think, that's the other thing people have to prepare themselves for. There are going to be some goals that Swayman lets in that you're like, holy crap. Like, he has that last year. What's up with it now? That's where missing training camp comes into play, I think, completely. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I think you got to take care of his body too. Like, I know that he'd been working out at BU and things like that, but like you can't ride him too hard, because if you lose him, oh boy, the outlook might change.
James Hagen's watch, baby. James Hagen's watch if they lose him. Anyway, Pete, what can the people look forward to from you?
We had Zadorov on the show this past week. What Chaos? You can find it on YouTube and podcast platforms. We got another Bruins guest coming up in, I believe, a couple of weeks. We've banked that one. It's fun. I won't give away who it is, but a guy who's been with the team for quite a bit of time, and that one was fun as well. So Bruins guests, not a Bruins podcast, but a lot of Bruins guests. We do a lot of Bruins talk, and it's just a fun show. So catch us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Go do all that. That's Bruins Beat. That's Pete Blackburn. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.